Hello, my name is Pastor Kathy Kohler. I'm the pastor of Pleasant Valley Lutheran Church near Malabar Farm State Park and St. Paul Lutheran Church in Lucas, Ohio. Greetings. We are reading through the Bible with commentary. We are in the book of Ezekiel, which is the third major prophet after Isaiah and Jeremiah. Isaiah was also known as the fifth gospel because much of Isaiah promises about a future coming anointed one, and Jeremiah, known as the weeping prophet, telling of this destruction that is coming from the Babylonians, are going to wipe out Jerusalem. And then we have Ezekiel. Ezekiel was deported on the first deportation around 593 BC and is in Babylon preaching, prophesying to the people in Babylon and also to the people in Jerusalem. At the beginning of the book of Ezekiel, he has a vision of the glory of the Lord, and it departs the temple. And he is saying that, like Jeremiah, Ezekiel says that destruction is coming. The Babylonians are going to wipe out Jerusalem, which does happen. And then we have a hinge chapter in chapter 33 when that is declared that Jerusalem has fallen. And then the rest of the book has actually this kind of promise of these blessings, this restoration that is coming. And we're now into the very last section of the book of Ezekiel, chapters 40 through 48, which Ezekiel paints a picture of a new temple. What is not clear, is this a figurative new temple? Is this the literal new temple? Is this way in the future? Is this the temple that got built when Cyrus let the exiles go back to Jerusalem? Is this the temple that they built at that point? Or it's probably all of the above, because that's how prophecy often works. Very specific to the people to whom it's being spoken, and also applying into the far, far future. And there is both this sense of the literal and the figurative. There was a rebuilding of the temple, which was then destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, and there is not currently a temple. But the New Testament, the Gospels, Paul in particular, talks about that we are now the temple. And so as we read through this last section of Ezekiel, there's this sense of, what does it mean to have the Lord as the king, as the ruler, as the one who's running the country? What does it mean to have a temple that is filled with the Lord and that is operated in a righteous and good manner? So we get into a tour of the new temple, which kind of mirrors, at the beginning of Ezekiel, we had this tour of the glory of the Lord leaving the temple, and Ezekiel kind of having this vision of the temple in Jerusalem right before it got destroyed. Now we're kind of going the other direction, that the glory of the Lord is coming, the new temple is coming, this future is coming. So this hopeful note that Ezekiel gets to end on. So, beginning in chapter 40 of Ezekiel, in the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was struck down, on that very day, and do we have a footnote for the actual date? I thought we did. Oh, I don't see it. But if it's 10 years after the city was destroyed, that would make it around 577 BC, since Jerusalem was destroyed in 587 BC. That very day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me there. He brought me in visions of God to the land of Israel, and set me down upon a very high mountain, on which was a structure like a city to the south. When he brought me there, a man was there whose appearance shone like bronze, with a linen cord and a measuring reed in his hand, and he was standing in the gateway. The man said to me, Mortal, look closely and listen attentively, and set your mind upon all that I will show you, for you were brought here in order that I might show it to you. Declare all that you see to the house of Israel. So let me double quick. Oh, it says that the dated introduction is the most complex date, and it dates the vision to April 28th, 573 BC, which is both from the beginning of the exile, 598 BC, and the date of the destruction, 587 BC, and So there's a very, very specific date. What is not specific is which mountain. What mountain was he taken to by the Lord? Could be Jerusalem, maybe not. It's not very clear. Verse 5, Now there was a wall all around the outside of the temple area. The length of the measuring reed in the man's hand was 6 long cubits, each being a cubit and a handbreadth in length. So he measured the thickness of the wall, 1 reed, and the height, 1 reed. Then he went into the gateway facing east, going up its steps, and measured the threshold of the gate, 1 reed deep. Do we have a note about the reed? Well, a cubit's about 1.5 feet, and this is the long cubit, so it's 1.5 feet plus more. So a little bit less than 2 feet across. There were recesses, and each recess was 1 reed wide and 1 reed deep, and the space between the recesses 5 cubits. And the threshold of the gate by the vestibule at the gate of the inner end was 1 reed deep. Then he measured the inner vestibule of the gateway 1 cubit. Then he measured the vestibule of the gateway 8 cubits, and its pilasters 2 cubits, and its vestibule of the gate was at the inner end. There were 3 recesses on either side of the east gate. The 3 were of the same size, and the pilasters on either side were of the same size. Then he measured the width of the opening of the gateway, 10 cubits, and the width of the gateway, 13 cubits. There was a barrier before the recesses, 1 cubit on either side, and the recesses were 6 cubits on either side. Then he measured the gate from the back of the one recess to the back of the other, a width of 25 cubits from wall to wall. He measured also the vestibule, 20 cubits, and the gate next to the pilaster on every side of the court. From the front of the gate at the entrance to the end of the inner vestibule of the gate was 50 cubits. The recesses and their pilasters had windows, with shutters on the inside of the gateway all around, and the vestibules also had windows on the inside all around, and on the pilasters were palm trees. And I admit I'm reading this a little bit quickly because it's not very exciting to have measurements for a temple that may or may not even be real. It could be figurative. So I am hoping to find maybe there's at least some kind of information about why is this. Oh, increasing number of steps marks the increasing degrees of holiness. Okay. It's still an awful lot of detail that are very difficult. It does have here that a long cubit is about 20.5 inches. So that makes the wall about 10 feet thick and high, and it's the only mention of a vertical dimension. All the rest are horizontal. And so the temple is oriented eastward with 10-foot thick walls and 10 foot high as well. So was I close? 20.5 inches? Just a bit more than 1.5 feet. So yay, I got that close anyway. Verse 17, Then he brought me into the outer court. There were chambers there and a pavement all around the court. 30 chambers fronted on the pavement. The pavement ran along the sides of the gates, corresponding to the length of the gates. This was the lower pavement. Then he measured the distance from the inner front of the lower gate to the outer front of the inner court, 100 cubits. And as I said when we read through 9.5 chapters of names in Chronicles, if we're going to read the entire Bible, then we're going to read Ezekiel chapter 40 with a lot of cubits. This is a vision of a temple. It's not small. Verse 20, Then he measured the gate of the outer court that faced north, its depth and width, its recesses 3 on either side, and its pilasters and its vestibule were the same size as those of the first gate. Its depth was 50 cubits, its width 25 cubits, its windows, its vestibule, and its palm trees were of the same size as those of the gate that faced toward the east. 7 steps led up to it, and its vestibule was on the inside. Opposite the gate on the north, as on the east, was a gate to the inner court. He measured from gate to gate 100 cubits, so not small. Verse 24, Then he led me toward the south, and there was a gate on the south, and he measured its pilasters and its vestibule. They had the same dimensions as the others. There were windows all around in it, and its vestibule, like the windows of the others, its depth was 50 cubits, and its width was 25 cubits. There were 7 steps leading up to it. Its vestibule was on the inside. It had palm trees on its pilasters, one on either side. There was a gate on the south and the inner court, and he measured from gate to gate toward the south 100 cubits. Verse 28, then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate, and he measured the south gate. It was the same dimensions as the others. Its recesses, its pilasters, and its vestibule were in the same size as the others, and there were windows all around it in the vestibule. Its depth was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. There were vestibules all around, 25 cubits deep and 5 cubits wide. Its vestibule faced the outer court, and palm trees were on its pilasters, and its stairway had 8 steps. Verse 32. And I'm trying to see if there's any footnotes that say anything helpful. Basically, they're all saying, yep, each side is the same. Verse 32. Then he brought me to the inner court on the east side, and he measured the gate. It was of the same size as the others. Its recesses, its pilasters, and its vestibule were of the same dimensions as the others. And there were windows all around in it, and its vestibule. Its depth was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. Its vestibule faced the outer court, and it had palm trees on its pilasters on either side, and its stairway had 8 steps. Then he brought me to the north gate, and he measured it. It had the same dimensions as the others. Its recesses, its pilasters, and its vestibule were of the same size as the others, and it had windows all around. Its depth was 50 cubits, and its width 25 cubits. Its vestibule faced the outer court, and it had palm trees on its pilasters on either side, and its stairway had 8 steps. Verse 38. There was a chamber with its door in the vestibule of the gate, where the burnt offering was to be washed. And in the vestibule of the gate were 2 tables on either side, on which the burnt offering and the sin offering and the guilt offering were to be slaughtered. On the outside of the vestibule, at the entrance of the north gate, were 2 tables, and on the other side of the vestibule of the gate were 2 tables. 4 tables were on the inside, and 4 tables on the outside of the side of the gate, 8 tables on which the sacrifices were to be slaughtered. There were also 4 tables of hewn stone for the burnt offering, a cubit and a half long, 1 cubit and a half wide, 1 cubit high, on which instruments were to be laid, on which the burnt offerings and the sacrifices were slaughtered. There were pegs, 1 handbreadth long, fastened all around the inside, and on the tables the flesh and the offering was to be laid. So if you have a temple and you are going to do sacrifices, then you're going to bring sacrifices, sheep, rams, bulls. You're going to bring them and you're going to slaughter them. So you bring the live animal, you stick it on the table, is how it's described, and you slaughter it there. And then you have another table for all of the tools, very practical. Explanation. Verse 44, on the outside of the inner gateway there were chambers for the singers in the inner court, one at the side of the north facing south, the other at the side of the east gate facing north. He said to me, this chamber that faces south is for the priests who have charge of the temple, and the chamber that faces north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. These are the descendants of Zadok, who alone among the descendants of Levi may come near to the Lord to minister to him. He measured the court 100 cubits deep, 100 cubits wide, a square, and the altar was in front of the temple. Verse 48, then he brought me to the vestibule of the temple and measured the pilasters of the vestibule, 5 cubits on either side, and the width of the gate was 14 cubits, and side walls of the gate were 3 cubits on either side. The depth of the vestibule was 20 cubits, and the width 12 cubits. 10 steps led up to it, and there were pillars beside the pilasters on either side. And if you are still with me, thank you. Hello, Tom and Peggy. You guys are awesome. We just love you so much. So we are up to chapter 41, and we are not done with cubits, but we're going to get through this chapter and get on to some more interesting things, and maybe I can find something interesting to say about all this. Maybe not. Chapter 41. Then he brought me to the nave, They measured the pilasters on either side. 6 cubits was the width of the pilasters. The width of the entrance was 10 cubits, and the side walls of the entrance were 5 cubits on either side. He measured the length of the nave. So if you're not a churchy person, what is a nave? A nave is the actual inside of the church, which is also sometimes called the sanctuary. There's a part behind that is not seen that people can prepare communion. That's called the sacristy. There's the entranceway to the main nave, and that is called the narthex. So there's some church words for you. So he's measuring the nave, which is the inside part. 40 cubits, and its width 20 cubits. Then he went into the inner room and measured the pilasters of the entrance, 2 cubits, and the width of the entrance 6 cubits, and the side walls of the entrance 7 cubits. So the inner part was only for the high priest. Nobody could just go in there. He measured the depth of the room 20 cubits, and its width 20 cubits beyond the nave. And he said to me, "This is the most holy place." Verse 5. Then he measured the wall of the temple 6 cubits thick, and the width of the side chambers 4 cubits all around the temple. And the side chambers were 3 stories, one over the other, 30 in each story. There were offsets all around the wall of the temple to serve as supports for the side chambers, so that they should not be supported by the wall of the temple. And we have a footnote on B. It doesn't actually tell me anything. Oh, that's H. So somehow, not only is there the temple, there's rooms all the way around the temple for the priests to live in and for storage, because of course people bring money and gifts to the temple, and so temples were full of a lot of money. So there's 3 stories of rooms all the way around that's not leaning on the wall of the temple, that's independent of the wall of the temple. Verse 7, the passageway of the side chambers widened from story to story, for the structure was supplied with the stairway all around the temple. For this reason, the structure became wider from story to story. One ascended from the bottom story to the uppermost story by way of the middle one. I saw also that the temple had a raised platform all around. The foundations of the side chambers measured a full reed 6 long cubits. The thickness of the outer wall of the side chambers was 5 cubits, and the free space between the side chambers of the temple and the chambers of the out of the court was a width of 20 cubits all around the temple on every side. So big, wide area around the temple before you get to all of these 3 stories worth of rooms. The side chambers open onto the area left free, one door toward the south, another door toward the north, another door toward the south, and the width of the part that was left free was 5 cubits all around. Verse 12, the building that was facing the temple yard on the west side was 70 cubits wide, and the wall of the building was 5 cubits thick all around, and its depth 90 cubits. Verse 13, then he measured the temple 100 cubits deep, and the yard and the building with its walls 100 cubits deep. Also the width of the east front of the temple and the yard 100 cubits. Verse 15, then he measured the depth of the building facing the yard at the west, together with its galleries on either side, 100 cubits. The nave of the temple and the inner room and the outer vestibule were paneled all around, and all 3 had windows with recessed frames. Facing the threshold, the temple was paneled with wood all around, from the floor up to the windows. Now the windows were covered to the space above the door, even to the inner room on the outside. And on the walls all around the inner room and the nave there was a pattern. It was formed of cherubim and palm trees, a palm tree between cherub and cherub. Each cherub had 2 faces, a human face turned toward the palm tree on the one side, and the face of a young lion turned toward the palm tree on the other side. They were carved on the whole temple all around, from the floor to the area above the door. Cherubim and palm trees were carved on the wall. So you're describing this whole big temple, basically built of stone, but then it's paneled with wood, and the wood has carvings, and the carvings include palm trees and cherubim. And cherubim are not what we tend modern to picture, these cute little angel things. Cherubim in Ezekiel, 2-faced, big wings. One face is human-like, one face is lion-like, facing toward the palm trees on either side. So the walls are all wooden and they're all carved. Verse 21, the doorposts of the nave were square. In front of the holy place was something resembling an altar of wood, 3 cubits high, 2 cubits long, and 2 cubits wide. Its corner, its base, and its walls were of wood. He said to me, this is the table that stands before the Lord. The nave and the holy place each had a double door. The doors had 2 leaves apiece, 2 swinging leaves for each door. On the doors of the nave were carved cherubim and palm trees, such as were carved on the walls, and there was a canopy of wood in front of the vestibule outside, and there were recessed windows and palm trees on either side on the side walls of the vestibule. Okay, we made it through 2 chapters of a lot of cubits. The upshot of that is Ezekiel has a vision of a new temple, and he is taken by an angel or by God to the top of an unnamed mountain and shown this temple. Is it literal or is it figurative? Either way, it is not small. It's very substantial, and it's very carved. It's covered with wood on the inside, and the carvings of cherubim, which is 2-faced winged creatures, and palm trees. And there's only about 6 more chapters of Ezekiel, and I'm hoping that we are done with cubits, at least for now. I had somebody ask me recently, how do you know these things that I talk about? And the first answer is because I went to seminary and they taught me things. But the other way that we know things is by reading through the Bible. And this part of the Bible is not as interesting to us modern people. What's a cubit? How big is this? Why does it matter? And yet, as we read through the Bible, we hear all kinds of things like, I will take away your heart of stone and replace it with a new heart of tender love for me, says the Lord. That's also Ezekiel. So we read about cubits and temples, and we also read about the Lord restoring his people and bringing his spirit and answering prayers. So we read the whole thing. We're going to read the whole thing. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord look at you with favor and give you peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And if you have sat through this whole thing, thank you so much. And Tom and Peggy, especially the 2 of you, just love you guys. Have a great day. Go in peace. See you next time.